What is going on, New Zealand? VanLand here, back with another video. Something slightly different today. I thought I'd do my top 5 life lessons I've learned by living in such a confined space as this. I'm sure there's a few on that list that'll probably catch you off guard, so hang around and we'll count through it. Alright guys, first on the list has got to be the value of water. Now, I know that sounds strange to a lot of you at home. The reality is, obviously, when you're at home, you flick on a tap, you jump in the shower, you don't think much about it. But the average water consumption in New Zealand is about 220 litres per person per day. And the difference being is that when you're in the van, we're only carrying 38 litres or 30 litres at any one time. So what you quickly learn is the value of that and wanting to sort of ration out that water, and then you quickly realise that it's something that we take for granted at home. I suppose we don't think too much about it, and then with the van it forces you to keep count of how much water you're using, and therefore it adds value for you in making sure that you keep within your budget. So definitely number 1 is the value of water. Alright guys, number 2 on the list is learning to live in the present moment. And I know that's probably been discussed a lot. You probably find many books and many YouTube videos on that one, but the difference is that when you're living in a van is that it actually forces you to get into that mindset. So what do I mean? I mean, with your basic routines you have at home, you'll have you shower, you'll have your cooking, you'll have your laundry, you'll have work, you'll have all these things that are like preset routines that you do day in and day out. Now when you get into the van, obviously it flips everything upside down, and those routines become, well, they're no longer there. For example, we don't actually have a shower in here, so we have to sort of then go through the process each day to sort out those things. So one of my favorites was actually doing laundry for the first time. So that consisted of driving around, find in the city, a new city, driving around, finding the laundromat, going through, getting your coins, swiping your card, putting your washing in, kind of like how they do in New York, when you go down to a laundromat. And so that whole process, as opposed to at home just jumping downstairs, chucking it into the washer and then hanging it out, or after it's done, or go down to the beach and come back, as that whole routine has now been shifted. And because you've done that across multiple things, it forces you to be in the present moment and to have to really be here now. And I think that's really important too, because in the West we stress so much about the future, and we also we relive the past so much about shoulds and could haves and would haves, and we don't really exercise the present moment as much as we should, when really the present moment's all that we've actually got. So guys, definitely number 2 is to live in the present moment. Alright guys, that brings us to number 3, and the third one, which is probably not going to be a big fan for a lot of people, is journaling. Now I know it's a kind of almost a lost art now. I know that obviously as kids and in primary school we used to handwrite, and every day was kind of part of a routine, but with the digital age being the way that it is, I mean, it's becoming a distant memory, actually having to write down. And but on top of that too, it's just a really good process, because when you're in the van you've got more time to do these things, and you have time to reflect and really process what's going on in your life, like what are the positive things that you've taken on board, what are the things that you've learnt from, and start sort of channeling that down into paper, or pen and paper. And I think it's a really important part of the van life, is that reflection, and is that present moment where you're going through and re-evaluating your direction in life. And certainly for me, massive for business planning, massive for my shortcomings and shadows that I'm working on this year. And also the biggest one for me would have been the family, sort of really knuckling down on my relationships with my family, and wanting to improve that part of my life. And again, the journaling, that all kind of brings it all together, and it's able for you to sort of use it like a map as such, and you can go back and re-look at things and see how you've progressed and what's changed since. So yeah, definitely that would be my third good tip, is the start a journal. Right, getting close now guys. Lesson number 4 is less is more, unintentional rhyme. So basically when you think about your life, think about your life like this, right? It's your house, it's your room, and then you go into a van, so then all of a sudden, you're shrinking down to say this much space. So when you're in the van, obviously you have to make a call about your needs and your wants, because you don't have the space to take all your stuff you'd have at home. And what that quickly does is it quickly lines out the fluff that we have in our lives. And I think in the West, especially because we're so good at consuming, that we go through our lives just like getting all these goods and services, and we stack them behind us, and then what we'll find is we've just hoarded them because we actually have the space to store all that clutter. And what you'll find is that it sort of weighs you down in a lot of ways, not just with the space taking up, but also the back of your mind. It's sort of there for me personally, when I always look after my stuff, and like I hate if something to get broken or damaged or something like that, and that kind of just like that's in the back of your mind. So yeah, one of the key things that I've definitely learned while living in the van is being less materialism, and just decluttering, and just really being narrowing down what it is that you actually need. And you'll find that you've got a lot of stuff at home that's just sitting there collecting dust, or has been for ages. And one of the most therapeutic things I did actually as a part of this journey was to actually sell a lot of my personal belongings, and that was just so therapeutic. I just remember that it's just almost like a weight off your shoulders is gone, and also you get the cash, which is good. So yeah, all in all, I think that's definitely a good lesson to learn, is that less is more, and there's probably a lot of stuff you've got at home that you should be flicking on Trade Me or on the Facebook. Alright, if you're still here, you've made it. This is the fifth and final, and that has got to be how stunning our country is. Like, we, as Kiwis, we get told this a lot, right? We'll go out, or we'll bump into someone or a tourist, and they're like, yeah, traveling your country, most stunning, beautiful country, and we kind of just like, yeah. And we kind of like, we kind of accept it, but I don't think a lot of us actually realize how stunning and how lucky that we are. And a lot of this content that I'm doing is actually out of the sort of education and the showcasing of how beautiful our country is, and why we need to actually start being more conscious of our consumerism and our products that we buy, and making sure that we're doing our bit for recycling. Because I mean, I'm in Queenstown right now, and you just see this beautiful lake and just how gorgeous it is. And I hate to think about the decisions that we're making now, 30, 50 years later, now drifting into our lakes, drifting into our oceans, drifting into our rivers. And that's going to be the reality if we're not making these decisions now, and actually making plays to reduce our footprints. So that's definitely my fifth and final, how lucky and how stunning we are, and just to hope that we share the message of looking after it. So please, just do your bit, guys. It's not rocket science. It's all going to make a difference at the end of the day, and your generations to come will thank us for it. So look, I'll leave it there with you guys. I'll see you in the next one, but thanks for tuning in.